The call from the bank came just as Ethan Cole was wrapping up at the office. Mr. Cole, good evening. We're calling to confirm a large transfer from your joint account, as per the alert you set up. Was this authorized by you? Ethan paused. What transfer? How much? Yesterday, at 3:28 p.m., a wire transfer for $80,000 was made from the joint account held by you and Ms. Isabella Vance to an entity called Orion Capital Partners. $80,000? Ethan's brow furrowed. That was the money they'd set aside for a new car at the end of the year. Isabella had never mentioned any investment plans. I didn't authorize it. It must have been my wife. Thanks for the heads up. He hung up, pinching the bridge of his nose. As a lawyer, he'd seen his share of messy marital asset disputes. He never thought he'd be starring in one. Still burning the midnight oil? Mar Peterson pushed the door open, holding 2 cans of craft beer. Come on, let's grab a drink. Not tonight. I've got to get home, Ethan said, gathering his files. His mind raced, replaying his wife's recent behavior. The constant late nights at work, the hushed phone calls, the mood swings. You look like hell. What's wrong? Ethan quickly explained the call from the bank. Mark slammed a hand on the desk. 80 grand? Just like that? Something's not right, man. No, it's not, Ethan agreed. Isabella's been different lately. Kept saying work was stressful. I didn't think much of it. But now, we should look into this, Mark said, pulling out his phone. What's this Orion Capital? I can run a check. Ethan waved him off. Let me handle it. I want to see what's going on at home first. He stood up to leave. As he reached the elevator, Mark caught up to him. Ethan, don't do anything stupid. I've seen this a million times. Cheating, hiding money. Get your facts straight first. I know. I'm a lawyer, remember? Ethan managed a faint smile as the elevator doors slid shut. On the drive home, he sent Isabella a text. What time are you off tonight? Need a ride? Her reply was almost instant. No, it's a team dinner. Might be late. Ethan's eyes narrowed. This was her 4th team dinner this month. He opened the Find My Friends app. Her location beacon was pulsing near a luxury hotel in the Gold Coast district. Once home, Ethan went straight to the study. He pulled open a drawer, retrieving Isabella's spare phone and the key to their safe deposit box. Inside the box, he found a black leather-bound journal. The first page was neatly labeled, Asset Transfer Log. Ethan's hand trembled as he flipped it open. The journal detailed multiple transfers over the past 3 months, totaling nearly $250,000. Every single one went to Orion Capital Partners. On the last page, a handwritten note. Transfer to NASDAQ account once the divorce is finalized. A bucket of ice water washed over him. Divorce? Isabella was planning to divorce him, and she was systematically draining their joint assets. He powered on the spare phone, unlocking it with her birthday. The message history was filled with intimate conversations with a contact saved as Leo S. The most recent text had been sent that afternoon. Suite booked. 2088. Ethan let out a cold, humorless laugh. He threw on a jacket, went downstairs, and hailed a cab straight for the hotel on the Gold Coast. It was just after 9 when he arrived. He went directly to the 20th floor and stood outside Suite 2088, the sound of a man and a woman laughing drifting from within. He took a deep breath. Instead of knocking, he called Isabella's phone. Hey, honey, she answered, her voice a hushed whisper. Is the team dinner still going? Ethan asked softly. Yeah, still talking shop. It might be a while. Okay, well, I'm heading to bed. Be safe on your way home. After hanging up, Ethan stood before the door, the warmth draining from his eyes. He took out his phone, quietly switched on the video recorder, and then produced a key card. He'd gotten it from the front desk by claiming he'd lost his own, using a screenshot of the booking confirmation he'd found on her spare phone. He swiped the card. The door clicked open. In the dimly lit suite, Isabella was curled up on the couch with a man in a tailored suit. A movie playing ignored on the television. Team dinner, Ethan said coldly. Director Vance, care to introduce me to your colleague? They sprang apart. Isabella's face went white. Ethan, what are you doing here? Ethan held up his phone. Just live streaming. Please continue. By the way, I was just wondering where the $80,000 from our joint account went. The man stood, adjusting his suit. Mr. Cole, let's talk about this calmly. This was all my idea. Mr. Sterling, isn't it? Ethan sneered. I'm well aware Isabella doesn't need anyone's help to betray her husband. Isabella frantically grabbed her purse. Ethan, listen to me. Let me explain. The money was transferred marital property. Ethan cut her off. Don't bother explaining. I suggest you find a good lawyer, because first thing tomorrow morning, I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of adultery and dissipation of marital assets. Isabella's panic curdled into anger. Ethan, you can't do this. Half of that money is mine. We'll see about that in court. Ethan stopped the recording, turned, and walked out, shutting the door on her desperate cries. Back home, he sat in the dark and texted Mark. Got the evidence. I'm filing tomorrow. At 5 in the morning, Ethan was jolted awake by the frantic ringing of his doorbell. He rubbed his eyes, the sleepless night weighing on him. Outside stood Isabella and her parents. Her mother's eyes were red and swollen. Her father's face was a mask of cold fury. Ethan, what is all this? Isabella told us last night you're divorcing her, her father demanded. Ethan stared coldly at Isabella. Why don't you tell them what happened at the hotel last night? Isabella's face was ashen, a flicker of panic in her eyes. I was just talking about work with a colleague. Enough. Ethan cut her off, turning to her father. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, my lawyer will be in contact with you. But let's be clear about one thing. This is not my fault. Ethan, don't be rash. Her mother pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Whatever it is, we can talk it out. Divorce is such a serious step. Ethan smiled, a chilling, humorless expression. Ma'am, I'm a lawyer. Do you really think I act rashly? Your daughter has been planning this divorce for months, while secretly transferring nearly $250,000 of her shared assets. That's not just immoral, it's illegal. Isabella froze. Yep, how did you know? I know more than you think, Ethan said flatly. I saw everything. Your little black book, the spare phone. Her father's face contorted. What book? Isabella, what is he talking about? Isabella stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Tell me everything, right now, her father roared. Isabella finally broke down, sobbing. Dad, Leo and I are in love. Ethan never loved me. You're the ones who forced me to marry him. That money is the compensation I deserve. Nonsense, her father bellowed. You were the one who insisted on marrying him, and now you blame us. Ethan sighed. All right, take your family drama back to your own house. I have to get ready for work. Isabella lunged forward, grabbing his arm. Ethan, please, just give me one more chance. I swear I was wrong. I can give all the money back. Ethan shook her off. No need. The court will give it back to me. Her father grabbed her. Let's go. We're going home to sort this out. Ethan, this isn't over. We'll be back. After they left, Ethan leaned against the door, exhaling a long, ragged breath. He pulled out his phone and called Mark. I need you to dig into that firm, Orion Capital Partners. I have a feeling this is about more than just an affair. An hour later, Ethan was in a conference room at his firm when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. Got it. Orion Capital is a shell corporation registered to a Leo Sterling. The guy has a record. He specializes in scamming wealthy women. There are at least 3 other cases, but the women were too embarrassed to press charges. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He texted back, compile everything you have on him. And one more thing, can you get into Isabella's work email? What are you planning? Not every battle is won in a courtroom. Sometimes a loss just needs to be total and undeniable. After work, Ethan went straight to Isabella's company. He sat in the lobby, watching the employees file out. Sure enough, Isabella and Leo Sterling emerged together. They stood close, but avoided any obvious displays of affection. Mr. Sterling, good evening, Ethan called out, rising from his seat. Leo's face fell. Mr. Cole, what are you doing here? Isabella looked just as panicked. Ethan, what do you want? Ethan smiled. I came to deliver a gift. He handed Leo a USB drive. On this drive, you'll find complete evidence of your scams against 3 other women over the last few years, along with the transfer records from my wife to Orion Capital. As a lawyer, I'd advise you to return the money in full before I file my report. Leo's face was a deathly white. What? What evidence? That's ridiculous. Either you wire the money back right now, or you wake up in a jail cell tomorrow. Your choice, Ethan said, his tone quiet but absolute. Isabella was completely stunned. Leo, what is he talking about? Sweat beaded on Leo's forehead. Director Vance, don't listen to him. Don't bother, Leo, Ethan said. Ethan's voice was ice. The last 3 women you targeted didn't have my resources for an investigation. You have 3 minutes to decide. Leo Sterling finally crumbled. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking as he tapped the screen. The money's been transferred back. Please, don't call the police. Isabella's eyes widened in horror. Leo, you really were scamming me. Ethan checked his phone, confirming the transfer notification. He then turned to Isabella. Now, we need to talk about our divorce. Ethan chose a high-end coffee shop for the negotiation. He and Isabella sat opposite each other, the air thick with tension. Ethan, I'm so sorry, Isabella began, her head bowed, tears splashing onto the marble tabletop. Please, just give me one more chance. Ethan took a slow sip of his espresso. You already had your chance. You threw it away. I was conned by Leo, she sobbed. He said he could help me invest and make a fortune, but it was all... Are you sure you moved that money for an investment? Ethan's laugh was brittle. Don't insult my intelligence. The last page of your journal was very clear. Once the divorce is finalized. How long had you been planning this? Isabella froze, the facade crumbling. Since about 3 months ago. Why? You were growing so distant. Always at the office. I thought you were seeing someone else. Ethan actually laughed out loud. So you decided to launch a preemptive strike? By cheating on me first, and then stealing our money. Isabella stammered. When we got married, you promised you'd spend more time with me, that you'd help take care of my parents. You didn't do any of that. Ethan looked her dead in the eye. Why do you think I was working those hours? It was to buy a bigger house so your parents could live with us comfortably. And while I was doing that, you were draining our savings and sleeping with another man. Don't say it like that. Isabella covered her ears. It wasn't intentional. Not intentional. Ethan scoffed. Then how did you manage to so meticulously document every single transfer in that journal? Stop acting, Isabella. We both know the truth. So what do you want from me? She finally snapped, her voice laced with anger. You got the money back. What more do you want? Ethan pulled a document from his briefcase. Sign this. You walk away with nothing. Isabella shot to her feet. You're dreaming. I put in the work too. The company shares the house, the cars. I get half. Ethan chuckled coldly. You really want to take this to court? Can you afford the legal fees, the discovery, the depositions? All on your own? And he paused for effect. Do you really want everyone to know about your dirty little secrets? Isabella stared wide-eyed. You wouldn't dare. Why wouldn't I? Ethan said. The petition is already drafted. It includes photos, video evidence of your affair, and complete documentation of the asset transfers. How do you think a judge is going to rule? She panicked. You can't do this. We were married. We were married? Ethan repeated, his voice dripping with scorn. Where was that sentiment when you were betraying me? Isabella was silent for a long moment. Then a twisted, bitter smile spread across her face. Fine, I'll sign. But don't forget, I know all your friends, all your clients. I will make you pay for this. Do your worst, Ethan said, pushing the papers toward her. Sign it. Isabella snatched the pen and viciously scrawled her name on the divorce settlement before storming out of the coffee shop. Ethan let out a long breath and texted Mark. Phase 1 complete. Brace yourself. It's about to get ugly. Leaving the cafe, Ethan drove to a luxury condo building across town. It was a place he and Isabella had bought before they were married, intended for their parents to use one day. The elevator stopped on the 15th floor. He walked to 1503 and knocked. The door opened to a middle-aged woman. Mr. Cole, you're here. Ethan nodded slightly. Maria, how is she today? Doing well. She's watching television, the caregiver said, stepping aside. Can I get you something to eat? No, thank you. Ethan walked into the living room, where a woman in her 60s sat on the sofa. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. Ethan, you're here. Hey, Mom. He sat down beside her. Did you take your medicine? I did, she said, patting his hand. You look tired. Working late again. Ethan smiled. It's nothing, just a little worn out. Mom, Isabella and I are getting a divorce. The old woman paused, then sighed. I knew this would happen. That girl's heart was never in the right place. I saw it from the beginning. Mom, don't say anything. I understand, she interrupted. You've been taking care of me behind her back all these years. You've suffered enough. Ethan's eyes grew misty. Mom, I'm so sorry. Silly boy, she said, patting his hand again. You have nothing to be sorry for. Isabella resented me for being sick, for not wanting to care for me. She's the one who should be sorry. Ethan gently hugged his mother. We're going to be okay, Mom. She nodded. I know we will. Don't you worry about me. I'm fine. Ethan stayed for an hour, organizing her medications and going over instructions with Maria before he left. When he got back to his apartment, he opened the door to utter chaos. Isabella had been there. She had trashed the place. Framed photos in the living room were smashed. His suits were slashed to ribbons. Red wine was splashed across their bedsheets. On the coffee table was a note. Ethan, this is just the beginning. You will regret this. Ethan let out a cold laugh. He took photos of the wreckage and sent them to a colleague at his firm. Add intentional destruction of property to the list. He started to clean up the mess when he found something in his study drawer, a photo of him and his mother, torn in half. On the back, in Isabella's handwriting. So this is where you were, taking care of your crazy mother behind my back. You deserve to be cheated on. Ethan's hand clenched into a fist, his nails digging into his palm. A rage unlike anything he had ever felt burned in his chest. This was his line, the one thing that could never be touched. He took out his phone and texted Mark. Change of plans. Total war. The next morning, a call came from Isabella's mother. Ethan, I'm begging you. Please stop torturing Isabella. She cried all night, she wailed into the phone. Ethan's voice was frigid. And did she tell you how I've been torturing her? You threw her out of the house. You're making her walk away with nothing. It's too cruel. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. Ma'am, did she tell you she was cheating on me? Did she mention she tried to steal $250,000 from our accounts? The line went silent for a few seconds. She said they were just close colleagues, and the money was for an investment. And did she tell you that she broke into my home last night and destroyed everything I own? That she desecrated a picture of my mother? Isabella's mother gasped. That's impossible. Isabella would never do something like that. Since you choose to believe her, we'll see you in court, Ethan said coldly. I'll present all the evidence to the judge. Don't, she pleaded. Ethan, please, let's just talk this out. We're family. Family? Ethan scoffed. Your daughter stopped seeing me as family a long time ago. If she signs the papers and walks away, I'll let it go. Otherwise, she can prepare to have her entire life ruined. He hung up and took a deep breath. He knew he was being ruthless, but Isabella had crossed a sacred line. Later at the firm, his receptionist buzzed him. Mr. Cole, and Isabella Vance is here to see you. Ethan frowned. Send her up. A few moments later, Isabella appeared at his office door. She was impeccably dressed in a dress he used to love, her makeup subtle, her expression pitiful. If you have something to say, say it. Don't waste my time, Ethan said without looking up. Isabella gently closed the door and walked toward his desk. Ethan, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. He finally looked at her. Is that all you came here to say? I know I messed up, but we were together for 5 years. Her eyes filled with tears. I'll come home with you to see your mother. I'll take care of her, I swear. Forget it, Ethan sneered. My mother doesn't need your charity. And stop the act. You don't love me. You're just terrified of walking away with nothing. Isabella's expression hardened instantly. You're heartless. I was with you for 5 years, from when you had nothing to where you are today. How dare you say, I don't love you? You love me. Ethan's voice was laced with sarcasm. Love me enough to cheat? To drain our bank accounts? To destroy our home? Or maybe love me enough to insult my sick mother? She flew into a rage. That was a moment of weakness. Are you really going to crucify me for one mistake? I gave you a chance, Ethan said, standing up. You didn't take it. Now please get out. I have work to do. Suddenly, a vicious look crossed her face. Ethan, don't push me. We're married, which means half of everything is mine. You want me to leave with nothing? Not a chance. Is that so? Ethan smirked. Then I'll see you in court. You think I'm afraid of you? She spat. I have dirt on you, too. How many of those cases you won for those big corporations were completely clean? If I leak what I know about the bribes you took, you can kiss your law license goodbye. Ethan shot up from his chair. What did you just say? Don't play dumb. Isabella, he said triumphantly. Those cash-filled envelopes, the expensive gifts. You think I didn't know? Ethan started to laugh, a chilling sound that made Isabella's blood run cold. You really think I would do something so stupid? He held up his phone, showing the active recording app. I've recorded every word you just said. Defamation, extortion. Are you actively trying to go to prison? Isabella's face drained of all color. You get out before I call the police right now, Ethan said coldly. Isabella stumbled backward, knocking over a vase on the coffee table. It shattered on the floor as she turned and fled from the office, leaving Ethan standing alone, his face a grim mask. He texted Mark. She's here. It went exactly as we predicted. Initiate Plan B. That evening, as Ethan was opening the door to his apartment, his phone rang. It was Mark. I got it. Isabella wasn't just sleeping with Leo Sterling. She was also involved with the director Stevens at her company. And there's more. Orion Capital is a front for a money laundering operation. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Keep digging, especially on the money laundering. There's more, Mark said, his voice low. I got in her email. Guess what? She didn't just take the money for her post-divorce life. She was planning to steal your firm's client list and sell it to a competitor. A flicker of cold fury lit Ethan's eyes. Send me everything. Every last detail. He hung up and walked out onto the balcony, staring at the city lights. The end of this marriage was going to be far messier than he'd imagined. He no longer had a choice. Isabella walked into the company elevator, her stomach in knots. The confrontation in Ethan's office had left her terrified and furious. The elevator reached the executive floor. As the doors opened, she was met by several security guards and the head of HR. Director Vance, please come with us, the HR manager said, his face unreadable. A knot of dread tightened in her gut. What's wrong? The president wants to see you. She was escorted to the main conference room. Inside sat the company president, Mr. Thompson, several other executives, and Leo Sterling. What was he doing here? Leo looked pale and refused to meet her gaze. Mr. Thompson stared at her coldly. Isabella, perhaps you can explain this. He slid a folder across the table. She opened it, and the blood drained from her face. It contained photos of her and Leo, financial charts showing the money flow into Orion Capital, and screenshots of emails detailing her plan to steal company client data. Where did you get this? She stammered. An anonymous tip, Mr. Thompson said. You two have some nerve, using company resources for your criminal enterprise. Leo suddenly jumped to his feet, pointing at her. Mr. Thompson, she tricked me. She's the one who said she had a client list to sell. I only. Shut up. Thompson slammed his hand on the table. Both of you, pack your things and get out of this building. Immediately. The legal department is already drafting the lawsuit. Isabella's legs gave out, and she nearly collapsed. Mr. Thompson, I can explain. No explanation needed. The proof is right here, he said, tapping the folder. You should be praying the company doesn't press criminal charges. Half an hour later, Isabella stood outside the building, clutching a cardboard box with her personal effects. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. Looks like you're unemployed. She furiously dialed his number. You did this. I simply told the truth to people who needed to hear it. Ethan replied calmly. Did you really think your little money laundering scheme with Sterling would stay a secret forever? You've ruined me, she shrieked. I'll never get another job in this industry. Just like you tried to ruin me. Ethan's voice was like ice. You betrayed me, stole from me, and were about to commit corporate espionage. You brought this on yourself, Isabella. You just wait. I'm not done with you. You should probably calm down, Ethan advised. The police will likely be contacting you for a statement soon. If you cooperate, you might get a lighter sentence. What? The police? Her voice trembled. Money laundering is a felony, Isabella. I was just doing my civic duty by reporting a crime. On the other end of the line, Isabella finally broke down, her screams turning into hysterical sobs. I'm just returning the favor, Ethan said calmly, and hung up. That night, Ethan was at his mother's condo when he got an urgent call from Mark. Isabella's at your place. She's lost it. Ethan frowned. How do you know? I installed a security camera outside your door. She's there with a couple of guys, and they just busted your lock. Ethan was already on his feet. I'm on my way back. Did you call the cops? Yeah, they should be on their way. By the time Ethan arrived, the police were already there. His apartment was in even worse shape than before. Isabella and two unfamiliar men were handcuffed on his sofa. Well, look who's here, Isabella sneered at Ethan. You should see what your good friend Leo showed me. She held up a tablet. On the screen was security footage of Ethan on a street corner, talking intimately with an unknown woman. Ethan glanced at it and understood. You really think you can frame me for cheating with that? He turned to the officers. Officer, these individuals broke into my home and intentionally destroyed my property. I want them arrested. Isabella laughed like a maniac. Ethan, aren't you Mr. Morality? You were cheating too. Ethan looked at her with cold pity. That woman is a private investigator I hired to tail you and Leo Sterling. The color drained from Isabella's face. What? Furthermore, Ethan said, pointing to a corner of the room, there's a hidden camera right there that recorded the entire break-in and subsequent rampage. Isabella completely snapped, screaming and lunging at Ethan. The police barely restrained her. Isabella, I'll see you in court tomorrow, Ethan said quietly as the police dragged her, kicking and screaming, out of his apartment. The divorce papers have already been filed. The next morning, Ethan stood outside the courthouse, Mark at his side. Ready? Mark asked, clapping him on the shoulder. Ethan nodded. It's time to end this. Inside the courtroom, he saw Isabella sitting at the opposing table with a hastily hired lawyer. She looked gaunt and exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed. When she saw Ethan, a flicker of something unreadable, regret, hatred, fear, crossed her face. The proceedings began. Ethan's lawyer presented the evidence. Photos of the affair, bank statements of the illicit transfers, security footage of her destroying the apartment, and even the emails detailing her plot of corporate espionage. Isabella's lawyer tried to object and argue, but his defense was flimsy against a mountain of irrefutable proof. Your Honor, while my client was at fault, they were a married couple. The marital assets should be divided equally. Ethan's lawyer scoffed. Your Honor, Under this state's statutes regarding the intentional dissipation of marital assets by a spouse, the court is empowered to award a disproportionate share to the non-offending party. Ms. Vance not only committed adultery, but actively engaged in financial misconduct. This constitutes a grievous fault. Isabella suddenly shot to her feet. Ethan never loved me. He never cared about me, only his work. He even hid his sick mother from me. The judge frowned. Order in the court. Ms. Vance, do you have any evidence to support your claims of fault against the petitioner? Isabella was speechless. Her lawyer quickly tried to salvage the situation. My client is emotionally distressed, Your Honor. We would like to request mediation to discuss the division of assets. Mediation? Ethan let out a short, harsh laugh. Your Honor, I request that you rule strictly according to the law. The hearing lasted 3 hours. The judge finally called a recess, announcing a final ruling would be issued in 1 week. Outside the courtroom, Isabella's parents intercepted Ethan. Ethan, we know Isabella was wrong, but can't you find it in your heart, for our sakes? Her father began, his voice low and pleading. Ethan looked at them calmly. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, I respect you both, but this is non-negotiable. Isabella's mother suddenly dropped to her knees. Ethan, please. Isabella's been fired. She's facing a criminal investigation. Her life is ruined. Just have mercy on her this one time. Ethan helped her up. Ma'am, please stand up. At this point, it's out of my hands. Then at least don't pursue the criminal charges. Her father begged. That's not up to me. Ethan shook his head. If she cooperates with the investigation and helps expose Leo Sterling's money laundering network, perhaps the DA will be lenient. Leaving the courthouse, Ethan took a long, deep breath. Mark clapped his shoulder again. Is it over? Almost, Ethan said quietly. One last thing. That evening, Ethan received a call from a block number. Mr. Cole, it's Leo Sterling. The voice on the other end was weary and defeated. Ethan sneered. What do you want? I know I messed up. I can give you all the evidence I have on Isabella's involvement in the laundering operation. I just need you to put in a good word for me with the judge. Ethan was silent for a moment. Police station. Tomorrow morning. He hung up and shook his head. A perfect pair of backstabbers, now turning on each other. The next morning at the police station, Ethan watched as Leo Sterling gave his official confession. He handed over a flash drive containing everything, including audio recordings and hidden ledgers, that implicated Isabella. This is enough to put her away for a few years, the detective told Ethan after reviewing the evidence. Ethan sighed. I'll respect the judgment of the court. Leaving the station, he called Isabella's father. Mr. Vance, Leo Sterling has confessed to everything. If Isabella turns herself in now and cooperates fully, she might still have a chance at a reduced sentence. There was a long silence on the other end, finally broken by a choked sob from her father. Thank you, Ethan. I know you still care about her. Ethan hung up and stared into the distance. The end of this marriage was more brutal than he'd ever imagined, but he'd had no other choice. A week later, the court's judgment came down. Due to grievous fault, the marriage was dissolved. All marital assets, excluding Isabella's personal effects from before the marriage, were awarded to Ethan. Furthermore, Isabella was ordered to pay Ethan $50,000 in punitive damages. That same day, the district attorney's office issued criminal indictments for both Isabella Vance and Leo Sterling on charges of conspiracy to commit money laundering. Ethan sat in his mother's apartment, quietly watching the sunset. Ethan, don't be sad, his mother said, gently rubbing his back. It will get better. Ethan nodded, his eyes moist. Mom, I'm sorry. I failed to give you a good daughter-in-law. His mother smiled lovingly. Silly boy, you did wonderfully. Having a son like you makes my whole life worthwhile. Ethan hugged her. Mom, from now on, we'll always be together. Outside, the last rays of sunset bathed them in a warm, peaceful light. The storm was finally over. Ethan knew the future was long, and for the first time in months, he was ready to start again. 6 months later, Ethan stood at the window of his new office, looking out over the Chicago skyline. After the divorce, he had left his old firm. He, Mark, and a few other like-minded partners had started their own practice, specializing in marital asset disputes and commercial fraud. You have visitors, Mark said, poking his head in with a strange look on his face. Ethan turned. Ooh, Isabella's parents. Ethan paused. Send them in. A moment later, Mr. and Mrs. Vance shuffled into his office. They had aged considerably in half a year. Their hair was grayer, their shoulders more stooped. Ethan, Mrs. Vance began, her voice cracking. Ethan motioned for them to sit. Mr. and Mrs. Vance, What can I do for you? Her father took a deep breath. Isabella's trial is next month. The prosecutor said she's facing 3 to 5 years. Ethan nodded. I am aware. She asked us to come here, to ask if you would be her defense attorney. Her mother suddenly fell to her knees again. Ethan, please. You know this case better than anyone. If you help her, maybe she can get a lighter sentence. Ethan quickly helped her up. Ma'am, please. I'm sorry, but I can't take this case. It's a clear conflict of interest. I'm the victim. The Bar Association would never allow it. Then, could you recommend a good lawyer? Money isn't an object. Her father asked, his voice trembling. Ethan was silent for a moment. I can recommend my old classmate, Kevin Lee. He's an expert in this field. I'll brief him on the case. They looked as if they'd been granted a pardon, thanking him profusely. As they were leaving, Mrs. Vance took Ethan's hand. Ethan, Isabella knows she was wrong. She talks about you all the time in jail. She says if she had just listened to you, none of this would have happened. Ethan didn't respond, simply walking them politely to the door. Mark was waiting outside. Are you really going to help her? I'm just recommending a lawyer, Ethan said flatly. The rest is up to the justice system. 2 weeks later, Ethan saw the verdict in the newspaper. For his cooperation, Leo Sterling was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Isabella, due to her lesser role and full cooperation, received a 2-year sentence, suspended in favor of 3 years probation and a hefty fine. He folded the paper. He felt nothing, as if he were reading about strangers. That evening, Ethan visited his mother in the hospital. She'd been admitted for some tests. Ethan, you're here, she said, her face lighting up. He sat by her bed and took her hand. Mom, what did the results say? Nothing serious, just the usual old complaints, she said with a smile. The doctor wants to keep me for observation for another day or two, then I can go home. Ethan felt a wave of relief. That's great. His mother suddenly asked, I heard. That woman's sentence came down. Ethan nodded. Yes, 2 years probation. Do you still hate her? He thought for a moment. No, I don't hate her. I just think it was a shame. So many years wasted. His mother patted his hand. It wasn't a waste, my son. It was a lesson. Look at you now. You're stronger, more mature, and your career is better than ever. Ethan smiled. You're always right, Mom. When he got home, an unstamped letter was waiting for him. He recognized Isabella's handwriting instantly. Ethan, by the time you read this, I will have left the city. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I am truly sorry. I think about it all the time. If I hadn't been so greedy, so blinded by what I thought was an easy way out, maybe we would still be together. You are a good man, and you deserve a better life. Forget me. I wish you nothing but happiness. Isabella. Ethan read the letter and set it aside. He felt no sadness, no nostalgia. It was as if it had all happened a lifetime ago. He opened his laptop and got back to work on his current case, a wife attempting to hide marital assets. The irony wasn't lost on him. It seems, he murmured to himself, that some stories just keep repeating. The next morning, Mark called. Ethan, we've got a big one. The client is asking for you specifically. What's the case? A publicly traded company is being accused of accounting fraud. The shareholders want you to represent them in a class action suit. Ethan considered it. All right, I'll take it. He hung up and got ready for work. The sun was shining, promising another busy day. As he walked out his building, he stopped and looked up at the sky. The storm clouds had finally passed. He was free, unburdened, and ready for whatever came next. A year later, the firm of Cole and Peterson had made a name for itself, especially in high-stakes marital and corporate fraud cases. One afternoon, Ethan finished a client meeting and walked into his office to find Mark sitting in his chair, a mischievous grin on his face. What's got you so happy? Ethan asked, setting down his briefcase. Mark leaned forward conspiratorially. Guess who I just got a call from? I have no idea. Isabella. Ethan's hand paused in midair. What did she want? Not you, me, Mark clarified, sitting up straight. She said she's working in some small town down south. She wanted me to run a background check on someone. Ethan frowned. Who? Her new boss. She suspects he might be involved in money laundering and wanted to know the truth before she got entangled in something illegal again. Ethan let out a surprised laugh. Well, it seems she finally learned her lesson. Mark nodded. I told her I'd do it, but that my rates are high. That's your business, Ethan said, his tone making it clear he had no interest in the topic. After work, Ethan went to his mother's apartment for dinner. He had recently moved her into a larger place closer to his office, making it easier to visit. Ethan, you're just in time. Dinner's ready. Maria greeted him warmly. He smiled his thanks and walked into the dining room, where his mother was already seated. Mom, how are you feeling today? He asked, sitting down. Much better. More energy than yesterday, she replied with a smile. Here, try this soup. Maria made it just for you. As Ethan reached for the bowl, his mother said, "Oh, by the way, Mrs. Diaz stopped by to see me." "Who?" Ethan asked, confused. "You know, the woman who owns the flower shop at the corner. She brought her niece with her, a lovely young woman who just got back from living abroad. So polite. We had a nice long chat." Ethan smiled. "Mom, are you trying to set me up?" She chuckled. "You're 33. It's time you thought about settling down again. Her name is Sophia. She's coming to visit me again tomorrow. Why don't you stop by?" Ethan shook his head. "Mom, I have a major case brief due." "You and your work," she chided gently. "Work never ends. If you don't have someone to look after you, what will you do when I'm gone?" "Mom," Ethan said, a hint of exasperation in his voice. All right, I won't push," she said with a wave of her hand. "We'll talk about it when you have time." After dinner, Ethan watched some TV with his mother before heading home. He sat on his sofa, staring into the empty living room. His mother's words echoed in his head. He was 33. His career was thriving, but his personal life was a void. Since the divorce, he had thrown himself into his work, cutting himself off from almost all social activities. His phone rang, startling him. It was Mark. "Hey, I checked out Isabella's boss. You're not going to believe it. He's dirty. Money laundering, tax evasion, the works. I already told her." Ethan nodded to himself. "What did she say?" "She's quitting, and she asked me to tell you she hopes you're doing well." Ethan sighed softly. It seems she really has changed. "Yeah, well, getting dragged through the mud will do that to a person," Mark said. He paused. "Speaking of which, my sister Chloe is in town tomorrow. She wants to introduce you to a friend of hers." "Interested?" Ethan laughed. "Why is everyone trying to set me up today?" "Because it's time you moved on, man," Mark said, his voice serious. "Let the past go. You can't spend the rest of your life alone." Ethan was silent for a moment. "All right, I'll meet her." He hung up the phone and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Maybe Mark was right. It was time to look forward. The next day at noon, Ethan was waiting in a coffee shop for Mark and his sister. The door opened, and Mark walked in with an elegant, poised woman who looked a few years younger than him. "Ethan, this is my sister, Chloe Peterson." "Chloe, this is the infamous Ethan Cole I've told you about," Mark said with a grin. Ethan stood and offered his hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Chloe shook his hand, her smile warm. "Mark talks about you all the time. Says you're the most principled lawyer he's ever known." After they had chatted for a few minutes, Mark glanced at his watch. "Oh man, look at the time. I have a client meeting. You two have fun." Ethan knew a setup when he saw one. Chloe clearly did too, and she blushed slightly. "That's my brother for you. Please don't mind him." "It's fine," Ethan smiled, surprised to find he wasn't feeling awkward at all. "Mark told me you're a university professor." "Yes, I teach psychology," Chloe confirmed. "And you're a lawyer, I hear?" They fell into an easy conversation, moving from work to hobbies to their views on life. Ethan was captivated. Chloe was sharp and insightful, and talking with her felt effortless and refreshing. Before he knew it, 2 hours had flown by. "It's getting late. I should head back to campus," Chloe said, checking her watch. Ethan felt a pang of disappointment. "Would you be free to have dinner sometime?" Chloe smiled. "I like that very much." After walking her out, Ethan returned to his office to find another letter on his desk. No return address, but he recognized the handwriting. "Ethan, I heard your firm is doing incredibly well. I'm happy for you. I'm doing okay now. I found a stable job, and my life is simple but peaceful. I'm writing to tell you that I've truly changed. I have you, and that awful lawsuit, to thank for forcing me to see myself clearly. I'm not asking for forgiveness, only for you to know how deeply I regret the pain I caused. I hope you find happiness. Isabella." Ethan read the letter and set it down gently. He felt no anger, no nostalgia, only a quiet acceptance. The person who had hurt him most had finally found her way. He picked up his phone and texted Chloe. "Are you free for dinner tomorrow night?" A reply came almost immediately. "I am. I'm looking forward to it." Ethan smiled and put his phone down. The afternoon sun streamed through his window, lighting up his office, and it felt his future. That night, he visited his mother and told her he'd met someone new. "Mom," he said, "maybe it's really time for me to start a new life." His mother looked at him, her eyes shining with love. "As long as you're happy, my son, that's all that matters." Ethan hugged her tightly, his heart full of gratitude. It was this strong, unwavering woman who had taught him how to navigate the storms of life with dignity and courage.